she'll be the first to tell you there are much bigger things to worry about.
I know it's just a cable company and I know it's business.
Like loss of life and property.
You should have some compassion.
But that still doesn't make it right.
It's aggravating. I just think it's horrible.
Why a cable company charged people hundreds of dollars even after they lost everything. And a viewer wants to know if days and days and days of toxic air is poisoning our produce. And the story of Mike Pomeroy.
I saw the fire coming in the security cameras.
Who defied level 3 evacuations so he could keep the Detroit Dam running all by himself while wildfires surrounded him.
In my mind it was, it's game time.
Here's the story.
And it's game time here too, except this is not a dangerous job. This is actually a pretty cushy gig. I'm in awe of some of the things I've seen from some of the people in this area. In awe. I'm Dan Haggerty. Hi, welcome to the story. Something I want to tell everybody, if you've been writing in, using that hashtag HeyDan, all this stuff we ask you to do every night, I've been getting so many messages and emails and things like that every single night. I want you to know if we don't get back to you right away, don't worry. Keep them coming. Okay, we do read every single one of them. I've gotten a few people who are saying, hey, I've written in, this is my second time, and I haven't heard back from anybody yet. Please be persistent, be patient a little bit. We value every single email. They're the most important part of the show, honestly. So continue to email us at thestory@kgw.com. Find me on Facebook and Instagram, and keep using Twitter and the hashtag HeyDan. Our community is, going through a lot right now, and we need your help to guide us through it. That said, struggles don't always need to be big to be valid, do they? You got losing your home. That's obviously up there at the top. Losing a loved one doesn't get much bigger than that. Some of the struggles that we are seeing in small towns across Oregon are so big that they can make some of the smaller ones seem almost insignificant, really, in the grand scheme of things, but they're not. All right, especially when they start piling up on top of some of the bigger ones. For example, a woman from Gates who talked to our Kyla Boshi. See, she lost her home, and then the cable company called about the parts that burned up.
Beneath the ashes, there's a skeleton of Vicki Larson's home. Everything familiar is gone.
It's devastating when we got up there and saw that our house was gone. Your memories are there, your life is there, and you can't replace any of that.
Last week, Vicki called various utility companies to let them know her house in the small town of Gates had been decimated by wildfires. Most customer service reps were sympathetic to her loss, but the cable company, Wave Broadband, followed up with a bill for a little more than $600.
And I thought, oh my gosh, that's got to be a mistake. So I called them to take care of the mistake. And that's when he informed me on the phone that was the equipment that I was responsible for.
Turned out Wave Broadband, the company that provides phone, cable, and internet to many wildfire-ravaged communities in Oregon, charged Vicki for equipment lost or burned in the fires.
I know it's just a cable company and I know it's business, but I don't care. You should have some compassion for the people that you're dealing with right now, especially in one of the most horrible times of their lives.
And social media posts suggest Vicki isn't alone. Rachel Robertson of Otis lost her home in the Echo Mountain fire in Lincoln County.
It's like I didn't think to run back into my fire to save my Wave equipment. That was not on my mind.
Reached by phone, Rachel said Wave Broadband also billed her more than $600 for cable equipment lost in the fire. And she's uninsured.
The last thing that the victims of wildfire need to be thinking about is how am I going to pay hundreds of dollars for equipment that I never even thought to save.
When contacted by KGW, Wave Broadband apologized and said customer service representatives had referred to general policies on equipment loss that didn't factor in natural disasters like wildfire. The company has since updated those customer service reps and is taking care of affected customers. In a statement, Wave Broadband's Senior VP of Operations said, "First, our full sympathies are with those affected by the wildfires in and around our communities. In addition, nobody affected by the fires is responsible for lost, damaged, or destroyed equipment, as this is the last thing anyone should worry about now." Despite these reassurances, Vicki said it's a headache she didn't need.
It's aggravating. I just think It's horrible.
Battling customer service at the cable company is the last thing on her list. She's dealing with disaster. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Have some developments to tell you on that story, and some stories do have happy endings, even when we're dealing with what we're dealing with now. Not long after Kyle started asking some questions, Wave Broadband did reach out to both people in his story and remove those charges. Now, there has been a lot of interest from a lot of people about how these fires started. And the answer is, in most cases right now, it's still a big fat we just don't know. The website InstaWeb is a great tool we can tell you about to keep you up to date with those questions in real time. Right now, they only have the causes for two of the biggest fires. So the Lion's Head fire burning on the Warm Springs Reservation was started, they say, by lightning. And the Riverside fire in Clackamas County is categorized as human caused. But remember, human cause doesn't necessarily mean it was set intentionally. It could be anything from a campfire to a downed power line. So right now, we just do not know, but we will keep you updated on that. Now, I want to turn things over to Matt Zaffino for just a second, because while we still wait to see how these fires started, I think what we're worried about most immediately is how we're going to end it all. And I think some people are hoping that's going to start with some rain.
Yeah, and I've got some good news on that front too, and then also some just kind of like eye-openers as well. First of all, look at Cannon Beach right now. It looks fairly great out there. Yes, it's cloudy, but it's not smoky. As we look at Cannon Beach, the smoke has cleared. The clouds are there. That flag has been blowing around. South-southwest winds at 10. So good news continues at the Oregon coast. Meanwhile, the reality check on Portland. Everywhere you see one of those bars on this bar graph turn to the magenta, the deeper reddish purple color, that's where the air quality is hazardous. Now, this graph begins on Monday. We saw a little improvement yesterday, and then we're back in the hazardous category today. And once again, we lead the world rankings of major cities with the worst air quality index in the world, followed by Vancouver, BC, and Seattle. And if you look at the air quality warnings or the air quality indices around Oregon, it's all pretty much either hazardous or healthy, very unhealthy. A few places are lucky enough to be merely unhealthy over in eastern Oregon. Look at this. Our west coast smoke has made it clear to the east coast. That big swirl of cloud you see, of course, is hurricane, now tropical storm Sally, and there goes sunset across the east coast. But our smoke literally is making it out over the Atlantic. Now, they're not smelling it and dealing with it the way we are. For them, it's a haze that can produce a nice sunset, but they are seeing it. And so it is traveling clear across much of our hemisphere. It'll be smoky through morning. But then tomorrow, change is afoot, and it's a good one in terms of getting rid of the smoke. Showers and thunderstorms will develop Thursday evening. It'll be much cleaner air by Friday, and by Saturday, the smoke should basically be out of here as things will be improving rapidly as this upper-level storm system, a double-barrel one, finally moves inland, mixes our air, brings us the rain, brings us cooler air aloft, which is key, and that's going to be the process that ends the smoke. Now, I want to show you this graph. This is that same upper-level storm. This is just in the models, not in the actual imagery, as it sits tomorrow morning. Now watch what happens to it. It moves over us. That cleans the air out. That's the thing that clears the smoke, and clear sky sets in Sunday and beyond. But I'm also optimistic about this happening. This is way in the future, next week, the end of next week. And if that system comes in, that would be a strong enough system that could actually end the fire season. So there is optimism in the short term and then also in the long term to really put the end to our Northwest fire season. Here's 7-day forecast for you, Dan. We have showers developing tomorrow evening, possibly a thunderstorm, and then frequent showers Friday, and the smoke gets blown out by Saturday. The thing about thunderstorms is this. It's kind of a double-edged sword. It's good because they can bring us heavy rain, good mixing of the atmosphere with wind to clear out the smoke. But we do need to watch the potential for gusty winds near existing fires and lightning. Even though unlikely to start new fires because we'll get heavy rain with those storms, we need to keep an eye on that as well.
Will do. Matt Zaffino, thanks for the update, man. Appreciate it. So we got an email, this one from Patton Eccles, sorry for the mispronunciation there, had a question about firefighter terminology. What is the difference between a fire being contained and being controlled? All right, Patton, so the Forest Service has the answer that you're looking for here. Containment means that firefighters have completed what they call a fuel break around the fire, and that could either be a natural barrier like a river or something like that, or a human-made line. It could also be why you hear the things called partially contained, and we'll often hear a fire being 25% contained or 80% contained. contain things like that. Now, control, on the other hand, that's the one you're looking for. That's what you really want. That means firefighters have completely extinguished a fire, including the fire spots, and they've secured a fire line so tightly that a flare-up won't break through and start another fire. Thank you for the question. Now, even during a statewide disaster like this, you can't expect politics to stay out of it for too long. See, case in point, yesterday the governor talked about a wildfire bill from earlier this year. Now, it ended up dying along with all other legislation because the two parties couldn't reach an agreement on cap and trade, and Republicans walked out.
I had legislation in during the 2020 legislative session, Senate Bill 1536. And the bill would have provided, amongst other things, in addition, more boots on the ground and more resources available to our firefighters. It would have provided the Office of Emergency Management with additional resources to help our communities with their evacuation plans, and would have provided Oregonians additional assistance to recover when wildfire affects their communities. Unfortunately, that bill did not pass because the legislature did not have a quorum.
Let's talk about this bill for a little bit. First of all, we asked Republicans about this, and they say that even if the bill would have passed, there's no guarantee that it would have helped with these fires because many parts of the bill weren't actually required to happen until next year, 2021. Anyway, Republicans voted against the bill before the walkout. So we asked them, what kind of fire legislation would you want to see instead? And they told us they were pushing for what's called the ODF modernization bill. They sponsored it last session and say it will likely come up again next year. It would give us 30 to 40 more full-time Oregon Department of Forestry firefighters, and it would update some outdated firefighting equipment. We should note Democrats did vote for this bill earlier this year. Republicans also say that they'd like to see more wildfire fuel reductions, something the governor says she also wants too. But even so, Senate Republican leader Fred Girard told us today this is a forest management problem, which Governor Brown has a lot of responsibility for. Brown has destroyed the state's ability to fight fires by refusing to update forest management policies. All the fuel and dry tinder in the forest is direct result of environmental laws that have made it impossible to thin and harvest Oregon's forest and natural resources. So look, there's still a lot of disagreement here on how to prevent these types of fires. We are going to continue to follow that for you, though. Now, I should mention Senator Girard is from Lyons, and that is a town that was hit very hard by the Beachy Creek fire. He toured the devastation in his district this week, only to discover that his own home had burned to the ground. Just another example of how personal this tragedy has been for so many Oregonians, including our elected leaders. All right, hey, time now for another edition of our segment. Were there clashes between protesters and police last night? The answer, same as yesterday, actually. I kind of like that answer. Let's keep it that way. That's that. So many of you have been curious I was curious how many of you saw this, in your mailbox. Probably most of you, if not all of you. See, the Postal Service sent one of these to everyone to offer, quote, general all-purpose guidance about voting and voting deadlines. Now, if we zoom into the third piece of advice there, you'll see that it says, request your mail-in ballot at least 15 days before the election. And that would be great advice if it was accurate, if you already didn't live in a state where ballots are automatically mailed out. So to be abundantly clear here, if you live in Oregon or in Washington, you do not need to request a ballot. If you don't believe us, believe Oregon Secretary of State Bev Clarno, who runs our election office, and she told us voters can rest assured that there is no change in our election process. There is no need to request a ballot, and postage is prepaid. So, long story short, the Postal Service spent a lot of money, wasted a lot of paper to give you some advice that you absolutely should not take. If you are registered in Oregon or Washington, you're all good. Sit back, sit tight, wait for your ballot to arrive in about a month.
When the story continues, bravery happens in big and small ways.
To be honest with you, it looked big and scary in the cameras.
File Mike Pomeroy in the big category by keeping the Detroit Dam going while a wildfire raged on around him. Plus, all this smoke has Portland gardens looking pretty gray, but is the produce still good to eat? We found out.
No matter how bleak it all looked or how hard it was to operate and organize all this stuff, Really, what was on our mind was survival and the survival of our evacuees.
Welcome back. I was just looking through emails. Not surprising, we're still getting a lot of questions rolling in about smoke, and it's because the smoke is everywhere and you can't avoid it. And if you thought you were trapped inside from the pandemic, now you really feel cooped up because you can barely go for a walk. It's tough to walk to the car and back, let alone go for a stroll in the neighborhood. The thing is, we just have to wait for now for the smoke to leave, but there's some questions we still have about its presence here. Kate emailed us and asked, after days and days of hazardous air quality, are our backyard fruits and vegetables safe to eat? So according to OSU research, the answer is yes, but. Yes, it is safe to eat, but you should probably give it an extra good rinse. The smoke and ash won't penetrate deep into the fruit or veggies, but they may stick to the surface, of course. I'm sure you could have come to that conclusion on your own, but it's okay if you wash them really well. So give your garden a good hose down, rinse your produce in the sink before you eat it. If you're still a little uneasy, you can always peel away the top layer, peel off the skin before you dig in. So, do you think that you might have a job that's considered high stress? Maybe air traffic controller, president. How about a dam operator during an inferno? Pat Doris met a guy who can do at least one of those jobs.
45 miles east of Salem, along Highway 22, the Detroit Dam stands shrouded in wildfire smoke. The area remains closed to the public. The Army Corps of Engineers shot this video for us Wednesday. The dam is run by plant operators who carefully adjust the computers and machines that run the massive structures. Mike Pomeroy is one of those, and reported to the dam's control room in this smaller building called the Powerhouse. It was Labor Day afternoon, the start of a lonely overnight shift alone. It would end up being one of the longest in his life. The shift began routinely enough. He drove between Detroit and the Big Cliff Dam downstream, checking on gauges and making adjustments. He knew there was a fire in the area, but there'd been fires before. It was something to keep an eye on, but not worry about. And then a windstorm blew in around midnight.
But it was getting pretty bad up there. The winds were probably doing 50, 60 miles an hour.
He knew it was time to go. At 5 a.m., he set the dam into a form of autopilot and began to drive toward town. It was already too late. The firestorm had arrived.
The fire had already come up to Big Cliff Dam and was across the road, essentially. A lot of fire and debris on both sides and fallen trees. And I could feel the heat through the car itself, and the car started filling up with smoke, and it became quickly apparent that there was no way. Visibility was measured in feet, and with all that debris and large boulders on the road, it was only going to take one hit and that car was going to be finished.
He turned around, driving just 3 miles an hour in the thick smoke, not sure he'd even make it back to the dam.
In fact, I was running scenarios in my mind that if the car died, it was probably going to be to head straight to the reservoir in the river and get in that.
Fortunately, he did make it. He opened the security gates and the visitor center and left supplies like these inside, just in case there were others running from the flames. As the hours passed, the flames arrived.
I saw the fire coming in the security cameras. In my mind, it was, it's game time. To be honest with you, it looked big and scary in the cameras.
He ran from the powerhouse up to the dam, knowing the huge cement structure would not burn, but he did worry about smoke filling the inside.
My plan was to do as much as I can to eliminate as many unknowns as possible and make as many contingencies as possible. If the gases chased me out of here, I have a safety ring by the door. And I was going to wet that down and make a dash for it and grab the ring and jump in the river if I got chased out of here.
Fortunately, it did not come to that. He stayed inside the dam, the only one there, checking everything he could think of to make sure it was all safe. That lasted all of Tuesday and into Wednesday morning. Deep inside these tunnels, he could not see the fire as it passed through. He forced himself to stay awake more than 30 hours, taking just 15-minute breaks whenever he could reach others on the outside who would dial in and watch the dam for him.
And poked my head out the dam door. I didn't see any signs of fire. I radioed down to Lookout Point, and they responded, and I was pretty happy. Pretty happy.
Pat Doris, KGW News.
Hey, now we want to give a quick little shout out to somebody putting their life on the line to keep us safe. Cody Perez sent us a picture of Armando Perez Jr. fighting the Lion's Head fire. We want to devote part of our show every day to bragging about people like Armando. So if there is a firefighter or anybody kind of putting their life on the line, a first responder you want us to give a shout out to, we want to hear about them. Send us a picture, tell us a little bit about them. You can email us, as always, I say it a million times a show, at thestory@kgw.com. You can tweet us too using that hashtag #HeyDan. You can also comment on my Facebook. You can DM me on Instagram. Anything, okay? I'm desperate for attention, so please just give it to me. We just want people, though, to share all the bravery that we are seeing, and we think that they deserve it. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts. So Armando Perez Jr., thank you, sir. But look, you don't need to race into the line of fire to help people who need it the most. We've actually made it really easy to donate to the KGW Northwest Response Fund through the Red Cross. We have a QR code that we've been putting on your screens a lot lately. If you haven't used one of these before, it's pretty interesting. I mean, you just take out your smartphone, you turn on the camera, you point that camera at the code, and it will pop up a little box where you can click on that and it'll take you right to the Red Cross page where you can put a donation in. If QR codes aren't your thing, don't worry about it. There's also a link that's super easy to find on kgw.com. We'll keep this up for a little bit longer if you do want to grab your phone and try it. But we found out today, and this has just been blowing my mind, donors have actually broken a Northwest Response Fund record. We have raised more than $1.5 million. Thanks to your help, the people at home. And most of that money came directly from you, KGW viewers. So thank you so much for all of this generosity. It says so much about the people in this community. Your donations will go directly to fire victims. It'll provide them with food and water and shelter and emotional support during one of the most difficult times in our region's history. All right, when we come back, we're going to finish the story, read a couple of comments, take some feedback. Let us know what's on your mind. Grab that phone, tweet us using the hashtag #HeyDan, or email the story at kgw.com. We'll see you after a couple commercials.
When everything happened the way it did, I was just really focused on doing my job. You know, we are trained for this. Maybe not something on this magnitude. I would say what we experienced is probably one of the biggest calls we will ever experience in our lifetime.
Peter and Kathy wrote me this email here. It says, hey Dan, is it safe to look at the sun when it's partially obscured by smoke and clouds? Seems comfortable, but probably not safe. What? Why? No, don't look at the sun. What are you doing? I mean, I'm not a doctor or anything or an eye specialist, but I'm gonna guess no. Google it if you want. Marlon wrote this one in and said, a little confused. Tonight you said there was no need to request a ballot for Oregonians, but the other night you said those who lost their homes need to contact voter registration to give them an updated or temporary address. So those are two different stories. The mailer that went out to everybody. So people, whether they were affected by the fire or not. So Oregonians don't need to request a ballot. You're going to get one if you're registered automatically. Speaking specifically to people who lost their homes, oftentimes the post office in your area will kind of stockpile your mail so your ballot could show up there. But if you did lose your home, or if you know somebody who lost their home and you kind of want to take care of this for them or help them along because they have so much else to deal with, they should reach out to the elections office. They should try and make sure they get the ballot in their hands that is the right one, because it's going to be a little bit dicey with everything else going on. And then lastly, Bruce wrote in and says, is it safe to eat vegetables in my Portland garden? Well, our raspberries tasted like smoke, so we threw them out. You know, that's a little sniff test, little taste test. That'll tell you. You put it in your mouth, it tastes like smoke, I'd spit it out too. Keep those questions coming. I know some of them seem kind of like out there, right? But we're all wondering them. No such thing as a bad question. At least that's my opinion. Thanks for being with us. That's the story. We'll see you back here tomorrow.